Ambassador Holbrook, recently President Obama visited India, and we also know that President Obama will be visiting Pakistan next year. The United States has been saying this all along, that United States wants better relations between India and Pakistan and wants to play the role of a facilitator to improve relations between these two countries. But the announcement by President Obama in Indian Parliament hinting the support of India to become member of the UN Security Council has drawn criticism that it has been counterproductive. Instead of bringing these countries together, it has created more problems in the way. And now we see that the Federal Cabinet of Pakistan came up with a resolution opposing this U.S. effort, and now the National Assembly, the lower house of the Parliament, has come up with a unanimous resolution opposing this move. So are you trying to improve relations between these two neighbors, or creating more problems?
A basic fact of American foreign policy that we will support and encourage reduction in tensions and greater understanding between Pakistan and India. That's a given. And President Obama repeated it again on his recent trip to India. We would like the two countries to work out their differences. We're not going to be an intermediary between them, but we will support the process. We have good relations with India. We have good relations with Pakistan. The two countries don't have such good relations with each other. So our ability to talk freely and frankly and directly in both New Delhi and Islamabad is obviously something that can be beneficial. In regard to Afghanistan, all three countries, the U.S., Pakistan, and India, face a common enemy. This is the first time since partition that this has been true. And it's very frustrating to us that the leadership in the two countries does not put aside or push the pause button on its differences over other issues and work together against the common enemy that's trying to cause so much trouble. That would be our greatest hope.
I'll have no follow-up question. I'll move to Meredith Buell.
Ambassador, President Obama says he wants to begin withdrawing troops from Afghanistan by July of 2011, and others have pointed to President Karzai's date of 2014, which I believe you referred to a little bit earlier, as a more realistic handover date to Afghan security forces. This confuses people here in the region, and I suspect also in the United States. How many years will the United States need to have substantial armed forces in Afghanistan before the Afghan government will be ready to provide security and good governance in the country?
We think that the substantial combat forces, and you didn't use the word combat, Meredith, but I will.
Thank you.
The substantial combat forces should be phased out at the end of 2014, 4 years from now. That phasing out, that transition, will begin in July of this year. I understand why there's confusion, as you said, in the region, but I hope that this interview and the events in Lisbon and other things we're saying will eliminate that confusion. Some withdrawals, the beginning of transition, will occur starting in July of next year. And that process will not be completed until the end of 2014.
I'll give Najib a chance because he hasn't asked any question.
Thank you. I recently visited the Kalam Valley and have seen myself the support the U.S. Is giving through the helicopter service, and the people are very appreciative of the Pakistan Army and the U.S. For delivering them the goods and bringing them down to the plain areas. How far this service will continue, because the people are still asking this, because there are winters coming up, one thing. And my second part of the question is that because of these disturbances in our bordering areas, A lot of population is moving into the settled areas and other areas of Pakistan, and it has its own social complications and implications. And how, you see, we can handle with meager resources when the governments have no resources to handle these situations.
Your first question is how long the helicopters will stay?
Yeah.
Well, that's something to be decided by the Pakistani government. We will support them as long as they feel they're useful. In terms of your second question, that is a very difficult question, and quite honestly, it's way above my level of expertise about your great and complicated country. I know that there is dislocation and social upheaval because of the flow of refugees into the urban areas, and I hope they'll be able to go home. But I know that in every one of these instances, some of the people never go home, and the cities have to absorb the additional people. It's a difficult problem, and I do not have the level of knowledge and expertise that enables me to answer your question.
We are running out of time, but we can have like one half of the question from one from Rana. Yes?
Ambassador, the government has moved two pieces of legislation in the parliament seeking to impose taxes. And the opposition and the allies of the government are up in arms against these legislation. And it is likely that these pieces of legislation may not get through the parliament. In that case, what do you think would be the response of the international community? Because this is a democratic process.
I'm not prepared to speculate on a hypothetical. Let the democratic process of Pakistan work itself out on this issue, and let's see what happens after that. But I do want to commend the government for taking the first and very difficult step on tax increases. God knows our government has faced the difficulties of that recently as well.
This is absolutely the last question. But make it
Sir,
short.
now since the U.S. has started talking about reconciliation and talks with Taliban, can you tell us who is the enemy now?
Now, you can talk to the enemy while you fight them. That's a long-standing tradition. It's a historical reality. It's happened in Korea, it happened in Vietnam, it happened in almost every war in history, with the exception of World War II. In that war, the Allies put the goal as unconditional surrender, and it worked. It worked in both regard to Japan and Germany, but it is not a normal model. And the idea that you have contacts with the enemy while fighting them, looking for a political solution, is part and parcel of all modern conflicts. However, in this particular case, not much has gone on so far. The press has been filled with stories about reconciliation and secret talks and so on, but there haven't been any. There have been some contacts. There have been talks about talks, but they're not negotiations. I know a negotiation when I see one, and nothing that's happening rises to the level that you could describe as a negotiation.
Ambassador Holbrook, thank you very much for joining us today.